Now then, there's a lot of flack flying around inside the celebrity Big Brother house, most of it aimed at the hapless Jodie Marsh. But interestingly, hardly a shot's been fired at Pete Burns. That's because everybody's terrified of getting a tongue lashing from him. Even old bruiser George Galloway tiptoes around our Pete. So, he gets away with murder.
Ruler, you know what? Oh, today, you've really got on my nerves. Go and clear your dirty towels. Come out the bathroom. Do this. Why are you wearing that? Just get out of my face. You're not my mother.
Well, I actually hope that when I'm dead, somebody stuffs me and puts me in a living room.
Can we accessorise? That's the only thing that separates us from animals.
You know, you can take a horse to water, you can't make a drink. You can take a horticulture, but you can't make a thing.
Look at my... Wow!
She's an author now, because she's written a Fuzzy Felt book. I'm full of camp facts.
I am just outraged to see Chantal dragged into a separate camp and becoming as miserable as the sour old cow herself. I'm probably coerced into topless modelling because it makes loads of money. So I came in as me, not as part of a group.
I'm going to pieces.
I'm losing my rag now, I've had enough.
I just really miss my boyfriend. I feel like I've had a leg cut off or something.
Well, that amputated limb is Michael Simpson, who's here now, along with Jodie Marsh's mum and dad, who have a bone to pick with him in a couple of minutes. How do you think Pete's coming over?
Well, Pete just really is being true to himself.
Is that what he's like?
Absolutely. Oh, he's completely like that. If anything, he's probably calmer there than he is normally at home. But he's a very, you know, full-on, colourful kind of guy, as you can see. So he's just being himself.
The thing about Pete, well, we know him vaguely, and he's been on this show, and always his bark is much worse than his bite.
Oh, absolutely. But I think with people like Pete, you know, throw in the Liverpool accent and the weird dynamic of the colourful clothes, but with the kind of street talk, people get confused and always find it a little harsher than maybe he's expecting it to be.
Do you agree that that this... You must have seen Celeb Big Brother before.
Yeah.
Do you agree that the bullying's got a bit out of hand on Jodie and that he's partly responsible for that?
Well, yeah, I do think it's getting a bit out of hand because... But I'm not blaming Pete, but I think as a group, it's a very weird dynamic, obviously, in that house. It must be very surreal to be with a bunch of people you've never met. But I think from Jodie's point of view, initially I understand the arguments that were going on, but I think they are all taking their side. So, yeah, it does seem that whatever Jodie does is wrong. If she stays out of the group, they want her in, but she doesn't feel comfortable enough to go in.
Yes.
But if she goes in, she herself feels uncomfortable, so she must just be thinking, well, what should I be doing?
Well, and if you could, before we bring in John and Chris here, if you could talk to Pete, which of course you can't, it's totally incommunicado.
Oh, I thought you were going to do a link-up.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
we can't, not allowed.
no, we can't, I'm afraid. They won't allow us. We'd love to, but they won't
I'd
allow
love
us.
it too.
So basically, but if you could talk to him, vis-a-vis this Jodie situation, what advice would you give him?
You know, I wouldn't give Pete any advice.
Neither would I, mate.
I wouldn't tell anyone to give Pete any advice because he'd say a few choice words and
But wouldn't you tell him
step
to
back
backpedal
slowly.
a bit?
Well, no, you can't. I
No?
mean, Pete is Pete, and he'll do and say exactly as he pleases. And a lot of times with Pete, the more you meddle, the mischievous side of Pete will kick in, and he'll turn it around a bit more.
Well, let's have a look at him here.
Okay.
You have, is it blood pressure issues?
No. Well, I have, yes.
Yeah, all right, OK. Well, it was referred to by
Well,
your
I'd
daughter,
like to
so-
get that point over.
Well, let's see the clip
Okay.
and then you can. OK, well, this is Pete taking Jodie on again about something she says about you, about her dad.
20 minutes before I walked through that door, I was told my dad wouldn't be here because he's ill.
Oh, here we go.
Right?
Sorry, but...
No. And then I walked down the carpet and got booed. And then I came in and one of the first things everybody wanted to know was, oh, so what's Jordan really like and what's this and what's that? And me. Sorry that I'm a human being with feelings. Do you know what I mean? Because just anyone. I don't want pity. I don't want nothing.
What did he come in here under?
Do you know what I want?
did
I just want you lot all to just chat to me nicely, like you do to everybody else.
I think you just pulled a crying stunt on camera because you want more sympathy. I mean, I've never heard anything so opportunistically sympathy grabbing as and what's more, my dad was ill. Oh, do you think I poisoned my dad? No, he was on blood pressure tablets. He was feeling sick. That's why he come to the red carpet, and that worried you.
Go on, Dad.
Oh, it was actually, my illness was nothing to do with my blood pressure.
Oh, right.
I picked up a virus. I should have been back at work last Monday. Last Wednesday. Picked up a virus and it knocked me out. I spent 4 days in bed.
Right.
I didn't tell Jodie. I was getting up, staggering about the house and going back to bed, and because she was getting ready for this, I didn't say anything to her. She, just said...
So she might have assumed it was to do with your heart.
So, no, Chris, on the final day when they were going in, I was literally so bad I couldn't get out of bed.
Right.
Chris went on her own to the studio to say goodbye because all the families went to sort of wave, and was worried that she was with my son, but they were worried that Jodie would walk up the red carpet, see I was missing, and start panicking.
And
so I asked the production team to explain to Jodie that I was ill and stayed in bed.
I see. Okay,
and
fine.
of course, Jodie didn't. Jodie got the
know
message
why
that
you
I
were
was
ill.
ill. Didn't know
assumed-
why.
yes.
So she's worried.
Yes.
She assumed it was. I probably, as you said, you wouldn't say anything to Pete. If you could speak to Jodie on how to deal with Pete, what would you say?
Oh, you know, again, I mean, I don't know Jodie. I only know from what I've been watching on the telly like everybody else. But what would I say to Jodie? Probably pretty much the same as Pete has in certain segments. I wouldn't give anyone advice. You know, you have to be true to yourself. And I think it's their situation to deal with. And any outside advice is all well and good, but we're not there and we're not them. And
Absolutely.
we're not dealing with that, are we? So.
Well, you might have a chance to talk to Pete tomorrow because he's been nominated and someone's going to come out tomorrow night. So who knows? Would you like him to stay in? Well, you must do. Don't vote Pete off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I'd love Pete to stay in.
I'll tell you what I'd love to see. I'd love to see Pete and George Galloway tangling because they're staying away from each other. But I would really like to see Pete taking them on. Gotta be quick.
Oh, sorry, I've been watching a lot of the telly. They seem to be getting on really well.
I wish they weren't. I want to see a punch-up between
We'll
those two.
see.
Thank you both very
Thank
much
you
indeed.
all very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks indeed. And after the break, Elizabeth Hurley's back. This time she talks about herself for the very first time on British television. And You Say We Pay. The lines for that close in just a couple of minutes. We're back in a sec.